From the North Country, snow on the ground. Now it's time for the winter sports. Good to have you with us here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. And speaking of the climate, the deniers, of course, of climate change have gotten all kinds of material in recent days because of President Obama's trip to Paris, where world leaders got together to talk about what the president is now calling America's number one issue. That is climate change. This, of course, has drawn quite a reaction from some of those who on the right who want to be president of the United States. The president even went so far as to say that the United States is at fault and we're willing to do our part.
As one of America's governors has said, we are the first generation to feel the impact of climate change and the last generation that can do something about it. I've come here personally as the leader of the world's largest economy and the second largest emitter, to say that the United States of America not only recognizes our role in creating this problem, we embrace our responsibility to do something about it.
Let's turn now to Tiernan Sittenfeld. She is the Senior Vice President of Government Affairs for the League of Conservation Voters. Tiernan, good to have you back with us.
Hi, Ed. Nice to be with you.
This was quite a statement by President Obama. What kind of impact is it going to have? I mean, we know that the climate deniers are out and about in America. We know who they are. Collectively, it's the Republican Party. It's the conservative movement. They say it's bad for business. They're in denial of everything. But globally, does President Obama break out as a leader with comments like that?
I think you got it exactly right, Ed, in terms of both what President Obama has said and what the Republican climate change deniers have said. But we are tremendously optimistic as we begin day 2 of the international climate negotiations in Paris. We think that given the tremendous leadership that President Obama has shown, whether it's with the Clean Power Plan or rejecting the dirty and dangerous Keystone XL tar sands pipeline that you have talked about so much, which we really appreciate, or stopping leases in the Arctic Ocean, the United States is really leading by example. So as the president is in Paris, has been making very powerful remarks and calling on the world to act, we think there is a lot of potential and really feel confident. Already about 180 countries have submitted their plans for cutting carbon pollution even before these negotiations started. So it's really too bad that Senator McConnell and other climate change deniers are continuing to obfuscate and to stand in the way of progress, but we are optimistic that we will prevail and that we will make progress in addressing the climate crisis.
The president has gone so far to say that this is our number one problem. This drew reaction from Senator Marco Rubio.
No matter how you feel about the issue of the environment and the climate and changes to climate, there's no way any reasonable person could conclude that the most immediate threat we face to our security is what the climate's going to look like in 25 or 30 years. It's just...
Well, now, hold it right there. The reason why the president is saying that, Mr. Rubio, is because your party doesn't want to do anything about it. And if you're going to stand idle and watch this unfold, yes, it is a huge problem. He compares it, the biggest threats to the United States are North Korea, the jihadists, the Islamic terrorists, and all the threats that we face around the world. Well, we're doing something about that. We're trying to secure the country. We're not doing anything about climate change legislatively on a major level that some of these other countries are doing. So when the president says this is our number one problem, yeah, it is, because we have a bunch of deniers who are in a position of authority of making laws in this country. Tiernan, your thoughts on all that?
Well, the thing that's interesting is that the solutions to climate change, which is an incredibly pressing problem, we couldn't agree more with the president, the solutions are win-win-win. Of course they're good for the planet, they're good for the environment, they're also good for the economy because they create good-paying jobs in the renewable energy industry and elsewhere. They also improve our national security because they reduce our dependence on dirty, dangerous fossil fuels that we import from other countries who don't necessarily like us. So if we can be more dependent on clean, homegrown energy, we're going to truly transition to a clean energy future, and we're going to have improved energy security as we do it, improved national security, and a cleaner planet. So we think that there is tremendous opportunity and potential here, and we're really excited as these negotiations are underway because we think there's more momentum than there ever has been before.
And, of course, the conservatives connected to the low-information voter. This is Ted Cruz in Iowa talking about what we drive.
And Obama apparently thinks you're having an SUV in your driveway is more dangerous than a bunch of terrorists trying to blow up the world.
See, now that mindset will appeal to some. The educated people and people who are paying attention to it But you got to win everybody over to make something happen. But this is what the Republicans are relying on, that kind of attitude, Tiernan.
Yeah, it's absolutely absurd. I mean, it's really an embarrassment, not just that someone like Senator Cruz is in the Senate, but that he's now running for president and saying such outrageous things. And I think that stands in really sharp contrast with what we see some of the major leading business leaders of the entire world, people like Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, who are making major personal commitments for their businesses because they recognize that addressing the climate crisis is not just necessary, but that is potentially a huge amount of opportunity from a bottom line perspective as well.
So collectively, the Republican Party cannot be counted on when it comes to this issue. I mean, I don't see Ryan, I don't see McConnell. And listening to what Donald Trump said that what the president has stated is the dumbest thing he's ever heard in politics. So where does that leave us if a Republican wins the White House?
Well, certainly it would be an absolute crisis from a climate change perspective if a Republican wins the White House in 2016, which is why LCV is working so hard to make sure that that doesn't happen and that we have a climate champion in the White House. The one thing I would say is that there's some glimmers of hope on the Republican side. Just a couple of weeks ago, the Senate voted on a Congressional Review Act resolution of disapproval to block the Clean Power Plan, the single largest thing we've ever done to cut climate change. And there were actually 3 Republicans, Senator Collins, Senator Ayotte, and Senator Kirk, who voted to defend the Clean Power Plan, voted pro taking action on climate change. So we'd like to see more of that. The House is actually taking the same vote later today. We are hopeful that some Republicans on the House side will see the light. They will stand strong. They will buck their leadership. But it is very, very unfortunate that we have the leadership of both the House and the Senate continuing to be climate change deniers. And, of course, it's just a real race to the bottom when you look at who's running for president on the Republican side.
Tiernan Sittenfeld, good to have you with us, Senior Vice President of Government Affairs for the League of Conservation Voters. We'll do it again. Thanks,
Ed.
You bet. This is Ed Schultz News and Commentary. We want you to like us on Facebook. We do a Give Me a Minute feature every day on our Facebook page, We Got Ed. And you can get this production at WeGotEd.com, RawStory.com, and RingOfFireRadio.com. Have a good one. We're back tomorrow.